All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. Before we get started, just a couple of the normal items to take care of. We will have time for questions at the end of the presentation, and you can type those in by clicking that Q&A section in the lower portion of your control panel. We will be posting a recording of the webinar on our blog. The link for that will be shown at the end. And if you would like a PDF copy of the presentation, which you will because there's some great recipes today, there will be a link to download that on the same post as the recording. If your question does not get answered today, or if you think of any more questions, you can email our support inbox, which will be shown at the end as well. All right, and I am going to send it over to Tess to get started.
Hello. Hi. Happy February. Today we're going to be chatting about eating real foods. So I'm sure you all read the little blip about what the webinar is going to be like today, talking about what eating whole foods is best for proper nutrition, but how do we do it, right? We all know how to eat healthy, but it's just about how do we do it? How do we make it realistic? So we're going to break it down a little bit in this webinar to do so. And look at how nice those little hearts are. It's so February of me. All right. So starting off, we're going to be chatting about what are whole foods, kind of breaking the game plan there, figuring out what they are, daily recommendations of fruit and vegetables, benefits of whole foods, organic versus non-organic, bust the myths there, shopping, how to do it smart, prepping your foods to get the most nutrients out of them, and talking about some recipes, which is super nice. So definitely stick around for those. So to begin, let's start with the basics, bringing it way back, right? You find this term whole foods to be kind of familiar. And yes, Whole Foods is definitely a grocery store. So you're right. And it's a nice grocery store, definitely window shop worthy. 10 out of 10 we recommend going there. Anyways, whole foods are also foods that have yet to be processed, meaning that they are things straight from the ground, water, tree, wherever you decide to pick it from, the real fresh and tasty stuff. So for example, things like fresh fruits and vegetables or whole grains. Then we have our processed foods, which are typically more convenient in our American lifestyle, foods like cereals, breakfast bars, muffins, and hot dogs. Those are all great things that you'd find at a neighborhood block party and great examples for processed foods. So let's see, why whole foods, right? Why do we want to eat these whole foods? Why are they so important? Why bother with them, right? Processed foods sound like a party. Although a party is incomplete without a chip bowl, it can also have a veggie platter and give us more than just indigestion and nasty low energy. The point of Whole Foods isn't to increase the monthly grocery budget and spend hours meal prepping and slaving away in the kitchen. They are foods that, if incorporated with an even balance, are going to make us feel our best, perform our sharpest, and make our energy tanks burst. Today, I'm the fruit and vegetable spokesperson. So, unlike whole foods, processed foods undergo substantial modification, which ultimately strips them of nutrients, including unnatural chemical additives and high amounts of sugars and/or sodium. Whole foods give us a wide range of benefits. They include necessary nutrients for digestion, like fiber, as well as provide us with daily vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants to keep our energy levels up. Not only are whole foods giving us more in terms of nutrients, but they are also providing us with overall health benefits. Guys, our bodies crave foods like carrots, blueberries, whole grains, and that is how we prevent illness. The risk of developing cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and other chronic conditions can be greatly reduced if we give our body what they're asking for, along with the occasional Sunday morning donut that our mind is asking for. But I did mention balance, right? Not only can adding more whole foods to your diet reduce your risk of developing chronic conditions, but they can also improve other aspects of your health. Ever wonder why your gut is rumbling and upset after the gas station biscuit, egg, and cheese? Grumble no more. The balance of whole foods in your diet can improve GI function, which is that tummy grumbling, right? strengthen oral and bone health, keep our energy on a level playing field, and keep our skin youthful. But how much is enough to reap those luxuries, right? So let's talk about daily recommendations, specifically for fruit and vegetables. Now, we don't need to just eat a carrot and call it good for the day. There are dietary guidelines that you can find online by searching current dietary guidelines for Americans. That tells us how much of these whole foods we need. They change as science changes. So every 5 years, they update these recommendations. I know it's a little hard to stay in tune every 5 years, but we can do it. Lucky for you guys, I'll give you the overview and save you from getting trapped down the rabbit hole that is nutrition requirements for a toddler. And I don't even have a toddler. So let's start with it simple and stick with fruits and vegetables for this daily and weekly recommended. So for daily recommended intake, half of your plate is a good visual cue, 3 cups of vegetables, 2 cups of fruit, whereas weekly recommended intake is a little bit broken up differently. So you see like 1.5 cups of dark leafy green vegetables, 5.5 cups of red and orange vegetables, 1.5 cups of legumes, 5 cups of starchy vegetables, and 4 cups of other vegetables. You may be asking, what are these things? What's a dark green vegetable? What's a red and orange vegetable, right? So some examples, dark green vegetables are going to be like kale, spinach, collards, broccoli. Red and orange vegetables, I mean, we can name some of them, right? Carrots, bell peppers, sweet potatoes, tomatoes. Starchy vegetables are going to be some of those ones that we all like a little bit too much. White potatoes, corn, peas. I mean, I'm not really like a lima bean fan, but maybe you guys are. That would be in that category as well. Also, another way of breaking things up in terms of produce would be organic versus non-organic. So on this slide, we'll talk about what is that difference. The difference between organic and non-organic food has to do with how the food is produced, kind of how we addressed whole foods versus processed foods earlier. But the difference here is you may be holding the same food, let's say an avocado. One avocado has a nice sticker that says organic, where the other is labeled a measly non-organic product. So what is the difference? Because both avocados would look really great smashed on some toasted sourdough bread. Now, although both those avocados may look similar, there is a difference. Their organic produce will lean towards natural pesticides rather than spraying them with synthetic pesticides, fertilizers, and herbicides. However, this doesn't mean you'll fall dead in aisle 9 after snacking on the non-organic grape samples, but it's a good thing to think about quality of your food and limiting the consumption of additives or chemicals that may give us that extra toe. So shopping organic is a plus, but it's not a deal breaker for eating healthy or being mindful about eating whole foods. Like most things, it's a preference. And if you're anything like me, always buying organic can hurt a little bit more at the end of the month. So the key is finding ways to still make mindful choices, lean towards whole foods, and consume regular fruits and vegetables. Some tools that are beneficial when shopping non-organic are lists like the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 13, and these are both lists that provide you with the best options to buy that are non-organic. The items on the Dirty Dozen list are fruits and vegetables that tested positive for pesticides, residues, and had higher concentrations of said pesticides than other produce. Whereas the Clean 13 are fruits and vegetables that comparatively have less pesticides detected on them. In addition to these lists being fabulous for helping us choose the smart options, they are also updated yearly. So you could technically look up online the 2022 Dirty Dozen, and you'll get this nice long list of a dozen foods that you should be avoiding non-organic produce for. I'll give you a little sneak peek into the 2022 list of the Dirty Dozen, but I do highly suggest looking into it on your free time. The first 3 things on the list are strawberries, spinach, and kale, which means if you are considering buying these options, think about purchasing them organic or finding other options for non-organic produce. Now, this is just one way to reduce your grocery bill while still being mindful about the chemicals you are putting in your body. There are so many other ways to continue making good choices than simply shopping organic. So let's talk about shopping with intention, right? Here are some tips to think about when dragging feet at the grocery store. Personally, I find grocery shopping very therapeutic. No dogs barking, no cats headbutting, and some kids screaming, but we can't have it all, right? Firstly, whether organic or not, try buying seasonal produce. It's cheaper and tastier, hands down. Some in-season fruit and vegetables for the month of February are things like pears and apples, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, carrots, kale, mushrooms, a good winter one. Squash is huge right now. If you can't or simply don't want to buy fresh produce, you can buy frozen too. The frozen items are usually packaged at peak freshness, so we'll still have a ton of flavor along with all the natural vitamins and minerals. This can eliminate the barrier of spoilage too. Dried fruit is considered a processed food. It's usually processed with added sugars, preservatives, and should be consumed sparingly. So be mindful about stocking up on dried fruit because that's the word fruit in it. We all do it. Here in the Midwest, farmers markets are a huge thing in the nicer months. Right now, it's dark, gloomy, cold, and not conducive to a sunny farmers market. But maybe some of you in the warmer temperatures right now are still reaping those benefits. If you are, take advantage of all the fresh and local produce that farmers markets have to offer. They're typically cheaper, fresher, and they support local. Not only that, but they protect the environment, they connect you with your community, right? There are so many added benefits. You can walk around it while drinking a cup of coffee. I know that's my favorite. All right, and then lastly, thinking about living more sustainably. Growing your own produce might be asking a lot, but there are so many benefits to consider. Having your own supply of fruits and vegetables gives you the inside view of where it's coming from, which is your home. I'm not a gardener myself, but I try to grow things like bean sprouts and basil, starting small, right? Sprouts you can do in your kitchen. Takes like 5 days. So nice. And I'll give you some tips on starting your gardening journey. So thinking about like in-ground gardening, you can try things like kale, melons, squash, and cucumbers. Those raised beds, try arugula, spinach, onions, and carrots. Container gardening, try things like beans and peppers and tomatoes. Hanging baskets, try cherry tomatoes, strawberries, parsley, and thyme. And lastly, that windowsill gardening, try chilies, sage, rosemary, and microgreens. I did chilies last year in a windowsill gardening. I forgot about them because they were too high for me to see. So I didn't have those last season, but maybe you'll have some more luck. All right. And then in small doses, right? So being mindful and talking about, speaking of small, let's talk about like small in terms of realistic changes, right? All this information can be extremely overwhelming, so much so that you avoid the produce section at the grocery store and nosedive into the frozen pizza aisle. Let's stop that from happening. Think about making small adjustments to your current eating habits and celebrating the wins you are already possessing. That's the key. Instead of changing everything all at once, think about some of the habits you currently have and tweak them. Convenience stores, gas stations, and fast food restaurants are all great for quick and easy, but not so great for reducing processed food consumption. If packing lunch, prepping breakfast, or putting something together for dinner are not an option for that day, think about making mindful choices. Gravitating towards the fresh options like apples and bananas at the gas station, opting in for the hard-boiled eggs and opting out of the taquito twirling on the heating belt. This will not only save you energy, indigestion, but it'll also save you years on your life, right? Everything in moderation. All right. So now thinking about preparing your produce, right? It's not only important what you're picking, but it is also important on how you are cooking it. So shopping is an important part to get the best quality and tasty, but the way we cook them can make or break that flavor or nutrient value. The best thing about quality produce is that it's pretty dang tasty on its own. I mean, coming from a health coach, right? I'm a little biased, but still, Scout's honor. It's so good when you get the fresh produce. So when thinking about how to cook your haul of groceries, consider some of these ways. Examples like grilling, right? Vegetables like squash, eggplant, and asparagus are so nicely grilled. Fruits like pineapples and peaches can make a really awesome dessert. Blend them. Smoothies like with avocados, berries, and dark leafy greens. I promise you, if you put an avocado in your smoothie, it's just going to make it creamy. It's not going to make it taste like guacamole. Saute broccoli, cabbage, carrots, onions, and peppers. This is going to contain the most nutrients rather than boiling them and seeing that nice color of your water. All of that color, that's all the nutrients that you're pouring down the drain. Spiralize. This is kind of a new thing with things like zoodles, I think they call them, for zucchini, cucumber, beets, sweet potatoes, and carrots. You can make some really fun salads or dishes with spiralized veggies like that. All right. Now let's talk about some processed food options that can be substituted for whole foods. It can be easier than you think. So having a regular granola bar, right, and replacing it for nuts and seeds. There's that whole food source. Granola bars are made from a lot of nuts and seeds. And instead of having that, you can have the nuts and seeds, which is just as easy. Dried fruit, go for that piece of fruit, or try drying your own fruit. Flavored yogurt, go towards the plain yogurt and cut up your own fruit to put in there. Things like potato chips. I know air fryers are a huge thing, so you could try making your own, or you can settle for the home popped popcorn, air popping, or doing it on the stovetop with olive oil rather than canola oil or butter, or even veggies with hummus. I know I just discovered those veggie chips. I don't know where I've been hiding my entire life, but those are a great option for a good crunch. Kind of looks like a chip. Not saying it is a chip, but I'm saying it looks like a chip. All right. And then something fun to add from process to not, how to turn store-bought options to be whole food friendly, right? So store-bought peanut butter, so great. But before you roll your eyes, I was a Jif girl. I loved Jif peanut butter, and parts of me still do, but I know that the organic peanut butter actually tastes like what it's made from. So buying the natural and less processed version seems like a good decision to me. I then discovered the ability to do it from home. Peanuts are cheap, probably the cheapest nut. Most of you have 5 minutes and a blender. So try doing this from home, making your own peanut butter, and it's a great way to include the family. For 5 minutes, I guess. I know it seems daunting, but it's a great way to reduce your grocery bill, receive some rewarding endorphins, and get a tasty treat afterwards. How do you do it? Buy those unsalted peanuts, empty the container into a blender or a food processor, and blend until it forms a creamed butter. Some tips to think about: giving your blender moments of rest. It's working really hard to blend those peanuts. Scraping those sides every couple of minutes to push down that blended nut in order to get it to that creamed form. And patience, right? Patience for everything, but especially when making homemade peanut butter. All right. And then our recipe for the day is a sheet pan roasted garlic and herb chicken and vegetables. Now, the reason I picked this was because it comes from Whole Foods, right? You're getting good chicken breast, which is a good whole food. Things like broccoli and zucchini, onions and bell peppers. This is all on that one sheet pan. So a really great way is it's not messy, right? You're cutting everything up and you're throwing it on that pan, and you have easy cleanup, because if you put the parchment paper or foil at the bottom, all you have to do is pick that up, throw it away, and put that pan right back in your cupboard. So a lot of limited barriers in this sense. All right, Shelby, I'm gonna throw it back to you now.
All right. Before we go into the next webinars and stuff, you gave some great examples and great foods and things to try. I want to hear from everybody, what's one whole food or meal that you're going to incorporate this next week? Let's set a small goal for everyone. You can put it in the chat. You can put it in the Q&A box if you want to chat, if you want everyone to see it. Let me know. Otherwise, you can do it in the Q&A box. All right, they're rolling in. Someone wants to do more chicken. Spinach, that's fantastic. Fresh apples, zucchini, such a one that you can do so many different things with, right? Kale salad, Lentils, someone wants to do. More veggies in general. That's fantastic, right? It doesn't matter what it is. If you're getting more whole foods, you're going to see that benefit. Broccoli, just buying more organic. Again, Tess talked about the options you can have. It's not going to make or break you if you do organic versus non, but it can be a better option. So look into that. Look at those lists, the dirty dozen, and see which ones that maybe you can swap for organic. Avocado, adding nuts into the snacks. That's the thing. You can just add something into what you're already doing, right? Fennel, stir fry. That's a good option. We can roast like this, or you can make it into a stir fry. Cauliflower stew. That's an interesting one. Kohlrabi. I don't know how to spell that either for the person who put that in the chat. Sauteed veggies, more kale, more fish. That's a good one. You get in those good healthy fats, right? For brain health and all that good stuff. And it's a whole food. Air fried, people are going to use their air fryer. Love to hear it. Steamed corn, very good. Beets, that's a superfood, right? Dark greens, roasted veggies. Tess, are you loving all these options that people are going to try in this next week?
I'm getting hungry, that's for
right?
sure.
It is lunchtime here in the Midwest. We're going to go get some food after this. All right, sweet potatoes, grilled chicken with asparagus, 2 whole foods. There we go. Spinach and kale, artichokes, blueberries. Man, we have over 100 chats. I love it, you guys. And that's what it is, right? It's being intentional. It's saying, okay, what am I going to take for that one step for this coming week that I can do to make my health a little bit better? We don't have to be perfect. It's progress over perfection, right? If you listen to the webinars, we say that almost every time. Someone wanted to try that homemade peanut butter. Awesome. More veggies, Brussels sprouts. Oh, I love it. The spaghetti squash instead of the noodles. That's a big one that has been around. And you can even buy those in the frozen, the bags, the steamer bags now. Some of those spaghetti squash. Again, if you're looking to take a step in the right direction, but you're not quite there to get the whole squash, take a step. All right. Man, you guys are fantastic. Now, here's the thing. If you wrote something on there, you actually have to do it, right? That's the next, that's the next step. So, all right. What's that, Tess?
It tricked you.
I'm gonna hold you to it. I'm gonna write down all these chats, but all right. So before we get into more specific questions, if anyone has any, Tess, if you want to go to those next slides, we'll cover what's coming up next. All right, so next month we're going to talk about exercise, making it fun, right? It can seem like a chore. So we're going to talk about some tips and different things that you can do to make exercise more fun. And then in April, we're going to talk about a little bit of financial fitness. You know, that's when we're talking health and wellness, when we're talking all of the aspects, finances and financial health can make a difference in our physical and mental health too, right? So we're just going to talk about some easy, simple things that you can do to help get yourself taking some small steps on that financial fitness side. All right, if you want to go to the next slide, if you have lifestyle rewards, if you're watching the webinar for lifestyle rewards and you have to answer questions, some of you may not, some of you may have to answer the questions, but these are it. We will have the slides in, you'll be able to download the slides. So don't worry about writing all this down. If you go to the blog in the next day or so, the slides will be there and you'll be able to either watch this recording and jot them down. But again, if you have the questions, here's what they are. And then next slide is our contact information. So we are on all of the social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff that we share tips and motivational things. And then that blog, the healthcheck360.com/blog, that's where you're going to watch this webinar. That's where you're going to watch any past webinars. That's where you're going to register for upcoming webinars, and you can download the slides and all that good stuff there. And then you can contact us as well. You can give us a call at the 1-866 number if you want to set up a call with a health coach. We'll get you in the schedule. And then you can email us as well, healthcoach@healthcheck360.com. Like I said, if any new questions pop up when you're thinking about things after we're done here in just a couple minutes, you can always reach out. We're more than happy to chat about anything that comes up. So on that note, I'm going to stop the recording and then we will start with some questions if anyone has any.